Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. If you are watching this, you are watching it a day late and you're $1 short as well. Joining me today, as ever, the wonderful, the illustrious Neil. Dara, I got Dara.
My heart.
We've of course, we've got Dara. We got Dara in the chat.
I'm back.
F in the chat, Dara's here. No. And we are, of course, joined, and I'm going to be posting this as the video version, not just audio. Over on this side, we've got Mr. Niall the Paintsmith Armory, the commission painter extraordinaire who is bringing us the amazing Bellacore. And we're going to talk about that for a little while, and we're going to talk about some other things a bit later. But to start off, I'm going to hand over to my partner in crime. Dara, why don't you sort of start us off, mate?
Yeah, cool. So obviously, hopefully everyone has seen, like, you know, the fantastic work that Neil has done on Bellacore. I don't think I've seen a better Bellacore, and like I've seen a lot of Bellacores, you know. There's been a lot of them put out there, but like this stuff, one, man. And like I'm not saying this just to say it. Like when I saw this, I was like, dude, I have not seen a better Bellacore out there. I know Demon Rich is like working on a Bellacore right now, and that will probably be the best one. But right now, I'm like, this is like the stuff. I have like a million questions I want to ask you about it, but I'll try and narrow them down. And I think like the most important thing, first of all, which I guess is like a kind of a sweeping statement or whatever, but like, so like you got, you know, you and Jamie were like discussing like painting Bellacore for the charity or whatever. And yeah, just like what, going into this project, like Bellacore is a really, really daunting model to paint. How did you like plan it out? You know, what was it in your head that made you be like, this is the way I'm going to paint it?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't plan it all out. I kind of figured out parts of it as I went along. I had a bigger idea of how I was going to handle it at the start. Then I can't even remember what that was because I got the idea to do all of the freehand in the wing panels, and I just completely threw the other idea out. That's just gone. I can't even remember what it was at this stage. Just that idea just went gone. This is what we're doing now. And I kind of wanted it to be what I wanted to do. That I didn't want it to be kind of really out there and really different to what you would expect from the model. Like I wanted to keep it close to the greys and kind of dark tones from the original model, but I wanted to kind of, I suppose, spice it up a bit where I could. I like the greys, but I also want to do the fade of the reds and make a few things pop. And like I spent a good bit of time on like the sword. The sword is actually painted twice. That's the second version of it because the first one, it was okay. It didn't. I kind of wanted the sword to be kind of its own character a little bit. I wanted it to kind of, because I had originally the medals and stuff the same as the rest of the medals on the model, and it all kind of, you know, it all went together. But it didn't kind of pop out, and I wanted the kind of sword to be its own thing that would kind of stand out from the rest of the model. So I changed it up a little bit, and I'm happier with it as a result. But kind of like to say I have some grand plan with it, no. But I just kind of figured, like, had a couple of ideas and kind of figured things out of what I thought would be best as I went along, and kind of made decisions as I was faced with them.
Awesome.
Let me just it just sounds like you paint like I play. I've just show up and do something. So there's no plan. We're just going with it. We'll figure it out.
Just hanging out. Yeah.
I
respect that. My own like painting stuff is like pretty similar. Like halfway through a model, I'll just be like, nah, doing something else.
That's the fun way of doing it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's like I always think that like when you're like halfway through something and you get like that bolt of inspiration, like you were saying, you know, like with the wings, just go for it, you know, because it's probably going to come out better. Yeah, awesome though. I definitely can relate to you when you said the sword is like a thing of itself. I know in like my own Bellacore, I'm kind of like the sword's gonna come last because I like you, I'm like I want it to be its own character. But yeah, I suppose that leads me nicely into like the next thing I was gonna ask you. Like what was the like toughest part of the model to paint? I'm guessing it was probably the wings because like they look pretty difficult to do.
Toughest part, I think the toughest part actually is it was one particular panel on the wings. It's on the kind of this. I get confused between how to differentiate left and right with which wing would be. I suppose as you're looking at the model straight ahead, it will be the right wing, and it is the front of the front of the wings at the front of the model, the leftmost panel, it is the thinnest, smallest panel there, and it's kind of enclosed in like a little kind of crevice.
And it like folds in on itself. I know the exact panel, dude.
And that was difficult to try and get in there and go properly. And I suppose I'm trying to, like, first of all, get in there to actually paint something correctly on it, and then what do you put in there, because there's so little space to try and get it to do something with it. So I put this kind of like blood drop with kind of a face and the reflection on it. But I'd say that was probably the toughest, because, like, there's other details that you have to have, be quite tedious about, but as long as you kind of do it step by step, it's fine. But that was kind of a little bit hairy, we'll say.
I know when I was painting my own one's wings, that specific panel was a nightmare, the way it like folds in on itself. And like, I'm not doing anything complicated with my wings, and I was like looking at the work you were doing while I was doing my own, and I was like, I can barely paint this a basic color, let alone like try to get freehand in this tiny little crevice. Dude, I had so much respect for that. I just do not have that kind of patience, It was so impressive. But Jamie, were you gonna say something there?
I'm gonna take us over to the other screen. That way the images will be on the screen. Just give me a second, because I need to add your voices. Dara, you say something for us?
Yeah, testing 1 2 1 2.
Right, hopefully everyone in the chat can hear you. All right, yep. So carry on, and I'm just going to fix the image on the screen right now while you guys chat.
Yeah, cool. The wings, like, super impressive, dude. But actually, one of the things that, like, obviously I love the whole model, but I think one of the things that I like the most is that sort of like, maroony red tone that you went with for the skin, where it kind of like has that gradation into the darker tones. Like, what made you go with that kind of color? I was like really curious as to why you picked that, because I thought that was a really interesting choice that like works really well for the model. But like, kind of, I just want to pick your brain on that. Like, what made you go for that specific tone?
There was a couple of things. I suppose I have seen that kind of gray and red go together very well before in a number of different things, both in paintings, both in some of them have been like game models even, and things like that that I've seen it in. So I know those two colors do kind of pop quite well together. Another thing was I have World Eater's Army. I'm quite used to painting red. It's something I'm quite confident in doing. So I suppose I wanted to use, while I definitely did step outside my comfort zone in different bits and pieces of this model, I think that for kind of the core things, I was drawn to what I was used to and what I felt I could definitely do well.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, fair. Okay, cool. That's awesome. So like, apart from Be'lakor, like, I'm just curious as to, like, in your time painting recently, either for commission or for your own personal stuff, what like model have you found the most like challenging to paint? Like, was it Be'lakor, or do you think there's been something you painted that was like, even more challenging than him? Because I'm finding him pretty tough. I would say he's definitely my toughest model.
One model that I did actually paint one. I painted one as a commission before that I found really tough was actually I just had a hard time with it, and it wasn't a particular part of it. It was just getting the whole thing to work together. Was the the Void Dragon. I don't know what it was. I found that because it wasn't even like there was a particular detail or a particular awkward place like I was spoken about with that cleft in the Be'lakor wing. It was just, I found it hard to kind of, for it all to work together. And maybe it was the particular scheme that I was working with at the time. Maybe it could have been even that more so than the model. It was kind of this purple and yellow kind of thing, but I just found it difficult to get it to work. That's the one that really sticks out in my mind. But it's weird because it's not like it's a really great model. It's a really, really fantastic model. There's nothing bad about it, but it doesn't have a lot of really, really fine details that you have to make sure that you have to get right. Like, for instance, it doesn't have like eyes that you have to really just to get in there. It doesn't have anything like that, but yet I found it quite hard to just get all the bits and pieces to work together.
Yeah, I kind of see that, because I think when it comes to the Void Dragon especially, there's almost like a lot of negative space with that model. It makes it really hard, like you were saying, to make it all work together, because while it's a giant model, there's actually not much to it. It's like you got this like kind of sparse lightning going on, and then the actual body of the model isn't huge. So yeah, I can definitely kind of see that. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose leading on from that, on the other end of the spectrum, like what has been the model that like you've enjoyed the most, or like that you're the most proud of having finished? Like what was it that like, you know, you were like, oh, that was like so much fun to paint, and I'm like really thrilled with the result?
Have a cabinet here and just looking at stuff. There's a few things definitely. One thing, when I discovered one technique, it like blew my mind, and I was just like, this is amazing. Was the thing you can do? I'm sure you're familiar with it, but you can like, I don't know what the correct term for it is. To be honest with you, I don't know what it's called. But essentially, if you get a shade, like I use tracking off nightshade, and if you go underneath the model and you shoot it with an airbrush with tracking off nightshade, that it'll catch all the shadows and it'll make it really look like the light's coming down from the top. And there was times that I discovered that, and I was like, oh my god, this is great. You know, it was like magic. Because like it's really easy to do. There's no like great secret to do it, and you just don't overdo it, and you're golden. And there was a couple of characters when I started kit bashing the World Leaders characters. I think the first one I did was I don't even know. I've used him as a couple of different things, a couple of different models, but he's just a kit bash of some of the Age Sigmar bits and some of the World Leaders 40k bits and skulls and stuff like that. And that model I think was a really turning point model, because it was only a small thing, that little technique, but it kind of switched me on to a lot of different things. I think that one was a real kind of, you know, I don't know. I was going somewhere else, I suppose, with some of the stuff that I'd done. So it was a little kind of a crux model, I suppose, for lack of a better.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's actually really, really interesting how it's like, you know, you discover this one technique and it kind of sets you down a path that like opens up a whole realm. I think that's like a really important thing for anyone who's watching and is like, you know, maybe interested in getting into like, I guess like a higher level of painting. You'd probably agree with me as well. That it's like when you try new things like that, or like whether accidentally or deliberately, you know, you come across a new technique, like it can really push the boat out for you, I think, in terms of like, you know, skills and stuff. But yeah, I guess like
100%,
you know,
completely agree. Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, but Jamie, you did that thing with your drill where you like kind of like accidentally like made that mistake, and then you were like, oh, it looks really good now, you know. So
true, yeah.
It's like genuinely stuff like that you find out while you're painting. I think it's like the most like legit way of improving your hobby. It's just like trying these new kind of little fiddly bits and stuff. One thing that I really want to know for my own peace of mind, because I've been wondering since you started painting Bellicor, is that all acrylic paint that you used on him?
Is it all acrylic paint? Yes, it is. Didn't use any oils for this one at all. Yeah, no oils. That's all acrylics.
God, I can't believe it. Like, it looks so good. Yeah, that's yeah. So anyone out there who's like watching and is like, yeah, you need to hang on the crutch of oils to make your models look good, that's proof that you don't. You can make a great looking model with acrylics. But yeah, that brings me on to another question actually. Do you mess around with other like paint mediums? Do you just use acrylics generally, or like, you know, kind of like, you know, the way there's like that sort of like kind of broader sphere of like painting techniques, so like oils, enamels, you know, you mentioned airbrushing. I know a lot of people are like really daunted by that. Like how like large is your scope in terms of like techniques and tools that you use?
I kind of would give anything a go now. I haven't tried enameling. I've been wanting to for some time, but I haven't gotten around to it, because it does seem like something that's really fun, and the results that you get out of it are really cool from what I've seen. The whole covering it and wiping it off and all of that. But other than that, yeah, oils are great. It was I can't remember the guy's YouTube channel. Is it was Marco? Is that his name? I can't remember.
Marco Frisian?
Could be.
I think I know who you're on about. Yeah, he has a great oil paint. Is it the one with the knight where he does like the oil weathering on a knight leg panel, I think?
He's a guy who does it with a marine, and I feel really bad because I'd love to credit him, but I just names. But I remember because I did art in college. I have an art degree. And you know, I did oil painting and all that stuff, and like, you know, it never occurred to me before that you could do it with a model, because obviously, you know, you want the paint to be really thin, and that just blew my mind. I was thinking, oh my god, this is ridiculous. But it does work really well. But to go back to answer your question, that yeah, use acrylics a lot. I use oils a lot. Haven't tried enamel. I'd love to do that. Airbrushing, I love to do a lot of airbrushing. It really cuts down the time. And it like say for the likes to apply to Be'lakor as well. Like say for the skin, I think that would have been much more difficult to get that clean without an airbrush. Like, you know, could I give it a go? Yeah. Would I be as confident in getting it as clean as that is with the airbrush? No, I wouldn't be as confident. I'd give it a go if I really had to, but I wouldn't be as confident. But other than that, I do like to just kind of mess around a lot with models and just see what happens. And kind of like I go down to they have a local kind of like craft shop where I live, and I just kind of go in there and look for stuff. And you know, it could be a particular kind of watery kind of medium, or like one thing I got was I can't remember what it was called, but it was like it was kind of this some kind of glue or something like that, but it was essentially this really white, thick, clumpy stuff. I was like, okay, I could mess around with that and see what I could do with snow for that. So like, I would encourage people to just like, if you can think of an idea to use something in a different way, just go for it and see what happens. It might be, you know, it might be cool, but it might not be. But there's only one way to do it, is to find out. So I'm very much all for just like picking up whatever you can find. I do it often. Like the guys in my local group have kind of a running joke about it, because I made what was it? It was like a Eldar warlock out of a Nuln oil pot, and just knocking things together like that. Just take
That's
things
bizarre.
thrown together and see what happens. But that's my advice. Is just take as many different techniques as you can and just throw them all together and see what happens. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Jamie, I can see the timer's running out here. Do we want to dip out and restart it?
Yeah, I'm going to take us over for a 20-second break, guys. So I'm going to change the screen and we'll be right back. Just I don't want you seeing all my personal desktop stuff. So yeah, hold us 1 second. Okay, I am back, and we should all be. Everyone should be joining us shortly. And,
I am back.
All right.
I am back.
Hey,
Awesome.
okay, I'll just make this like that. There we go. All right. Yep, I know Zoom. All right, there we go. And yeah, we should be back. Sorry about that, everyone in the chat. But yep, we're back. So I've got a question here, a couple of questions in the chat. Herexus Prime says, Neil, will you paint my friend's bloodthirster? I think, look, mate, I just want you to, the amount of people that messaged me or commented or whatever, how do I contact him? What's his commission service? Just reiterate for everyone your you know how you do your business.
Well, I suppose the thing is, look, I still work full time. I have a full time job. I don't support myself with commission painting or anything like that. And I suppose like the standard of something like Be'lakor, like that took, as we said, what was it, 2 months, something like that.
Yeah, roundabout.
So I suppose I wouldn't want to go out there as a commission painter and turn a lot of people away. Because I just don't have the time for it, essentially. And I do get a steady bit of work privately when I need it, which is just as a nice little supplementary income thing. Now, I suppose response I've gotten from Be'lakor has kind of encouraged me a little bit more to perhaps do something like down the line. So I'm considering changing that. Maybe in a few months' time we'll see what happens. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's just a time thing, really. That you know, between work and family and all that, I just don't have the time, I think, to fit a huge amount in. But you know, something like this, I wanted to make the time for.
Yeah, I understandable. It does. You know, we have to, when we're involved in the hobby in 40k, whether we're painters, gamers, you know, YouTube people, whatever. we have real lives, right? You know, we all have jobs. We've got families, friends. We like to play the game sometimes, or paint for ourselves, or you guys paint for yourselves. I don't, but yeah. So I don't know if you ever do, you know, consider opening up or having a public page. Make sure you give me a shout, mate, because I will throw you all over the place. Because there's a lot of people which would throw money at you. But yeah,
thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Oh, phenomenal work.
It would take some heat off my back as well, because my backlog is big right now. And much like you, I work full time, but also try and balance the whole public commission thing. And yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go on, Jamie.
Yeah, so Mark in the chat just also asked, what about assembly, like, you know, building the model or models in general, I guess. Do you find it, excuse me, do you find it a chore, or is it something that you know, is part of the creative side of it, where you can really sort of dive in and sort of like express yourself in that way? Like, what do you get out of the building part?
For building, say, a model like this, it was, I would describe it as tedious and terrifying. Because, like, look, there's a lot of parts have to be taken off, clipped off, go around for mold lines, scrape them off and all that, and make sure to be kind of very diligent with the mold lines and make sure not to scrape too much and all that kind of thing. So I think when it comes to like a stock model that I'm doing nothing with, I do find building a bit tedious. But with a lot of my other stuff, I convert them. I get the green stuff out and knock things together. And when I'm doing that, I love that. That's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy that as a kind of a creative process. But just building a model stock is a thing that I do find kind of laborious.
You know what? I would agree. Sorry, Dara, I'm going to step on your hobby toes here, mate. But,
oh, dude. I hate building models. Yeah. I hate it so much. My least favorite part of the hobby.
But I agree, Neil, 100%. Like, more or less, the army that I actually play with is some variation of kit bash. I mean, it's not like I don't green stuff. You know, I don't create stuff out of green stuff or anything. I fill in some gaps and whatnot. But I like. For me, building an individual or unique force or, you know, or army, that's where I put myself into it. Like some models, like the drills and stuff, you know, I just build them as they are. But like my infantry and especially my HQ units, I always try and put just a unique spin on them. Like, and I enjoy that part. Like, I'm, you know, there's a few models I'm genuinely proud of where I spend hours and hours. Like one of my Terminator Lords has I've got parts from a Sigmar model which is like a bunch of chains as like a chainmail cloak, and then I individually glued skulls onto the end of every chain, and built a mound of skulls on the top of the Terminator chassis, and it was a lot of fun. And but yeah, just building a generic berserker or something is like, yeah.
That's like my favorite thing to do. I love building generic berserkers.
Oh God, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
When are we gonna get 2 wounds, Mark? Sorry, had to throw it.
When are we gonna get new berserkers?
Oh God, yes. They're gonna.
And that's gonna hurt my wallet so much when we get them.
Yeah.
Like, oh man. I already have so many. I think I have like over 100 berserkers, but I'm gonna like double that number as soon as a new kit comes out, because like I don't need them, but I'm gonna need them. You know,
oh, yeah.
It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like they're gonna release like. Well, yeah, they're gonna be so much fun to paint. Like, I'm really looking forward to if we get a new kit, and like if we get red butchers, equally, I have like I think on my last count I had 40 Terminators, but I'm gonna get 40 red butchers if they come out. You know, you just gotta have them. But yeah, that's awesome. One thing I did want to ask you actually was like, do you have like, I don't know how to say this, like exactly correctly, but like it's like a lot of people with my painting stuff, they're like, oh, like like I've got my style, you know, it's like the grimdark stuff or whatever. Like, do you have a personal style, or do you just kind of like, obviously for yourself it's one thing, but like when you're painting commissions, do you like paint them in a style that would be recognizable as your own, or do you kind of just like paint to whatever someone asks you to do, if you get me?
It depends. It depends if they're specific or not when it comes to commissions. Because sometimes, like usually, if I am taking on a commission, I will say, you know, what do you want me to do with this? And some people are quite specific about that. Like I had a friend I did a Mortarion for that wanted it based off some of the old Blanche art, and it was a lot of kind of it was the one I think I sent to you actually, Jamie, in the beginning. It was a lot of oranges and reds and greens, and so I followed that to the letter because I just had that picture up in front of me and kind of going back and forth the whole time to see if I could kind of capture that with it. But if somebody just kind of says just paint it, then like I would say I definitely lean into the whole grimdark thing. That is definitely I'm much more fond of doing that than the really shiny, especially for like marines. Definitely more fond of that than the kind of really shiny, super perfect kind of look. In terms of I don't know really. I don't think I have anything unique enough that I would call a particular style that is my style. I suppose I just take a look at the model and I decide what techniques I think will suit it, and that's kind of what I do. Like for like all my world users draw, kind of, you know, I get the sponges out and the metallic paints and kind of, you know, rough them up and stuff like that. Those are kind of tried and true methods. But for something like Bellicor, say, I wanted it to be more of a clean and more kind of a crisp kind of a thing. And like I suppose it was a difficult thing to do with that actually, was balance all the bright colors but still kind of try and make it look nasty.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, somehow you managed to capture that perfectly, where you use a lot of really like vibrant colors. Like, you know, the grimdark palette is usually very muted and kind of not really the usual GW paints and stuff, but like I don't know how you did it, but somehow you managed to use those really bright colors and still keep it grimdark. I was like, dude, this is like crazy. I just could not like understand how that was going on. Well, but yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
And I've got
thanks for that. Yeah.
Pictures. I know you guys can't see it, but the pictures are scrolling past as you're talking about, and like just looking at it, like, because I can see it, the way the spines of the wings, like or you know, whatever the technical term is, go from the kind of like the grey or the very dark skin tone into a very bright red just before like the nail or whatever, and then obviously the yellows and oranges and the flesh colours as the warp signs or like in the panels, the wing panels. It just gives it those little specks of colour. But when you look at the whole model, the display version, I guess, or the display profile, it's darkness, and which is really fitting, being, you know, the Dark Master, I guess, and then just like this kind of like sickly, chaotic aura of, you know, of chaotic colours, really. And I think it just kind of blends that. Not only are the, you know, the torture scenes, I guess, for want of a better word, like very, very grimdark and chaotic anyway, but it creates a literally chaotic backdrop, you know, for Bellicor, and then the sword going from it looks like a very purple at the bottom into the light blue and the white smoke tendrils, and it just feeds off the plinth with the blood around the bottom, and it's like I just see him, and I want a smoke machine effect in the background, because it's like he's just stepped right out of the warp here to screw somebody's day up, you know, and just all this mess is going on in the background, and he's like, let's go, somebody's gonna get got, you know.
Oh, thanks for that. You're very kind. That actually has reminded me though of, like, while that little wing membrane that I discussed earlier, that was definitely, I think, the most difficult part to paint. However, it was not the most terrifying, because you have to remind me of what that was, which was when I was doing those wings, because of the way I had to airbrush the tones in the background of or for those little panels. I airbrushed those, then I needed to do the grey, and I knew I wanted to do that red transition, and I wanted to do that with an airbrush. So that meant I had to tape over the wing bits.
Oh.
After they were done.
Oh no.
And that was terrifying. I knew because that was the only way I was going to get the effect the way I wanted it. And I did do a matte varnish first and let that dry just to be doubly safe, but it was still terrifying. Just kind of peeling it back and just like really hoping that it didn't just take off like the however many weeks work that I just put into this like.
Have you ever seen that guy? I think it was on Reddit. I saw it before. He was painting a lancer, a knight lancer, and on the big shield he had like this amazing freehands portrait of like an ultramarine like shooting a chaos guy or whatever, and he was doing the same thing where he like masked it off so he could airbrush the rim, and he took such a big chunk out of the freehand when he pulled off the paint. Like it had like the before and after picture. I'm sure like some folks remember because he was like all over Reddit when it happened. And it was like properly like, I think if that was me, it's like painting career over. I'm just like, no, never touching a brush again. But to be fair, he rallied it and he came back and he did it expertly. He covered it all up. But like, dude, anytime someone mentions like masking tape over freehand, I'm just like, no. Like it makes me feel like physically ill because of like the fear of taking off that masking tape is just like, oh, it's just not good.
Yeah, it was tense time. It was a tense time. I had to do it, however many panels there are, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 times. So, yeah.
Comment in the chat, Mark just said, compares, it said, the Bellecour's like a grimdark cathedral with the stained glass windows and all. And yeah, it does, like, to do that, because it is like stained glass art, right? Similar kind of vibe, except the evil version for Chaos Cathedral, and it definitely it really adds that dimension that I keep saying chaos because it's the only word that really fits, but like the kind of spiritual isn't really the right word, the sorcerous, the ethereal or whatever, esoteric, I don't know, just that. Could you imagine, look, let's see, when in 20-30 years time, when we're in when Chaos Marines finally get our second wound, right? In 20 years time, GW is going to come out with a type of paint that animates, right? It's going to be like, it's going to have micro, nanobots in it or something. And Neil, we're going to touch base in 20 years time when that happens because I want to redo, but that stuff like kind of animate. Could you? Oh my god, I'm sorry.
Like for me, it just like it epitomizes like what chaos should be. When I look at that model, I'm like, everything about that is like, it says chaos, but not just like current chaos in terms of like the lore or the artwork or whatever. It like, there's like parts of that model that take me back to like OG days, like especially that freehand, that reminds me of like the old, box art and stuff from like the old John Blanche art. Like I see that and I'm like, this is like a timeline of how chaos has looked throughout, like, basically its inception in Warhammer. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I just feel like whoever wins this prize, as soon as that Bellecour hits the table, people are just going to be like, whoa, it's going to draw so many heads. It's amazing.
You're very kind. Thanks very much. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. And and all the people in the comments as well. Thanks. You're very, very good. But I'm just happy people like it, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it's the main thing, dude. It's so nice to like get that. You finish obviously a very big project and then you get all this amazing feedback. It's always good. But there was something else I was gonna ask. So like I know a lot of people often, you probably get it as well, where like people come to you and they're like, how do you do X, Y, and Z and stuff, and like obviously there's like a million and one ways to answer those kind of things, but like when it comes to like learning and stuff and like developing your own techniques, I know you touched on it earlier with like experimenting with random stuff, like if you were to like give advice to the folks who are watching and like want to up their painting game, like what do you think the best thing they can do as just like a general thing, like what, whenever you're like, oh, I want to like learn this new thing, like what's your process of like getting that locked down?
Well, I think it's practice, really. Sometimes you get lucky, and the first time you try something, it's like, it works out great. But like, say for instance, just a technique that's quite popular, and a lot of people do it, is say the non-metallic metals. Like first time I tried that, it was a disaster. Did not it did not go well. So I suppose the thing I'd say to people want to kind of get up to the higher techniques in the painting is to just keep trying, just keep doing it. Do it, like, don't try it once and be like, oh, I can't do it, or it's not working. Try 10 more times, and I bet you'll see improvement. So I would say practice and just keep at it, and you will see a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like anything that I do now on my own stuff is like stuff that took me like months of practice to get to where I wanted to be. It's like you really gotta like punch those hours in to get like a result that you're like, oh yeah, I'm now comfortable with this technique. But yeah, like for sure, like that kind of resonates with me big time. Just keep practicing, keep working on it.
Yeah, I think I mean I don't paint anywhere near as much as you guys do, but like even I've noticed for a painter like me who's average skill, I guess, is pretty fair, like a lot of people. It's true. Just the more you do it, even with more basic techniques, right? And I'll be honest, for me, getting my paints thinned, correct, like for the GW paints, right? If you're just trying to follow like a Duncan Rhodes tutorial or something, getting like the right paints thin, like it took me so long to figure out how to get the right consistency. Then once I got it, it's like, okay, I can go, and then I can start moving on to, whilst I don't do like non-metallic metals or OSL or any of the more advanced techniques, getting there, it just takes, keep doing it, keep going, keep trying again, and eventually something clicks, you figure it out, and then you start learning on a new, you start working on a new skill, a new technique, or whatever. But just for everyone watching, that is the disparity here. I recently figured out how to correctly thin my paints, as these gentlemen are discussing, non-metallic metals and stuff like that. But yeah,
hey man, I can't do non-metallic metal either, so like don't stress about it.
Okay. Well, we have a strict hierarchy here. We've got a tier system,
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I wanna kind of pivot us over a bit here onto the charity side of it a little bit, because obviously, just anyone tuning in or watching later on, this is all for charity. The whole thing is a charity event to raise money for Save the Children. There is a link below, and anyone watching right now, you can see up here somewhere. We currently raised $785.88, so we're getting pretty close. Our goal is $888.88. More than that would be even better, but I think, being as it's a World Eaters channel, 888 was kind of a nice number to aim for. And how this is working, obviously you donate $5 to the link below in the description, which is Tiltify, which is just an easy way for me to track it, and use an accurate email address. Next weekend I'll be doing the drawing live on a live stream. Don't know exactly what time, but I'll figure that out and post it. And whoever wins is going to get Be'lakor. Is going to get this Be'lakor paint that's on the screen over here. You're going to get it. $5. That's all you got to do. $5, you can win Be'lakor. I think that's a pretty damn good deal. I think.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like the value from this, it's like, I don't know. Someone says, "Hey, you want the Mona Lisa? $5." You're probably, I can do. I've got some change in the car. I'll scoop the change out of the car ashtray, But seriously, folks, Neil was put in God knows how many hours into this. Like, do you even know how many hours you put in, Neil? Or even hazard a rough guess?
I didn't get a calculator for a second.
But yeah, while you work that out, he's putting so much time and effort, and like the results are just ridiculous. And every dollar, every contribution, number one, you're getting a chance of winning this. But number two, it's all going to charity. no, you know, there's nothing coming to us, nothing, you know, this is, Neil has given his time and his resources to provide this. So it's just such a great thing, and it'd be so awesome if we could just boost that money up a little bit. So if you're able to donate, that'd be awesome. If you're not able to donate, that's fine, but if you could share it around, share the link that's below, just the Tiltify link. You don't need to share the channel, none of that. Share the Tiltify link to, you know, on a WhatsApp group chat or to a Facebook group or Instagram, whatever. That helps out as well, because if we can drive more donations, that's good stuff. How many hours, mate?
It's hard to say. I'm gonna say minimum. I'd say about 60 hours. Minimum 60 hours, and then but it could be more. That's conservative, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know every time I touch base with you as we were emailing and chatting and stuff, it's like, I made some real good progress. I got a wing panel done this week, and it's like, you spent a week on a wing panel, my God, and you know it's obvious why, because like the oh my God, I don't even know, but yeah, just the yeah, that's ridiculous, mate, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, just once again reiterating everyone watching, please consider donating or sharing, spreading the word a little bit. We're going to run this for one more week as of this weekend. Next weekend I'll do the drawing. I think there's, you know, like I mentioned in when we had our interview a couple of months ago, Neil, ignore the names where it's like James Mills and Jimmy Milo and you know, they're completely unique individual people, and if they happen to win it, it happens. I mean,
I think my name's in that pool too. But it's on behalf of, I think it's on behalf of Mark. So if I win it, it's going to him. So
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we talked about, Neil, like when we was discussing trying to find a charity to support, right? Because we kind of had we had some original some ideas we wanted to support, and it was trying to find something that was, you know, worthwhile charity, but also something was kind of easy to get the donations for, which was honestly the biggest restriction. Finding something that allowed me to use like either Tiltify or something where there's an integration between the charity itself and being able to, like, because right now we've got the results live above us and I can track the donations. But tell us about why we went towards Save the Children, like as a general charity for us to support.
Yeah, we were looking at a few different ones. I think we settled on the Save the Children because I think it's just a charity that does great work. We scoped out as a charity. You know, there's various kind of reviewers and things like that, and they have a fantastic reputation across the board. They do great work with kids who are really in a tough spot and haven't had the best start out in life. So I think anything we could do to try and balance that scales would be a good thing to do. So I think that I think they're a great charity. I think they do great work, and I'm very happy to do something small to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, as I was, because we talked about, you know, anytime we support charity on here, we always kind of like look into them, make sure, you know, the amount of money that gets donated, how much of that actually goes to the end user, right? And especially when you're talking about kids, and a lot of kids in developing nations and in some pretty shitty situations, basically, want to make sure as much of that money goes through as possible. And I can vouchsafe anyone watching, Save the Children does have like a good rating from Charity Watch, which is a US based, you know, third party organisation that rates charities on their, you know, the service level per dollar donated and stuff like that. And they're doing a lot of work, or they've been doing a lot of work helping kids in countries, especially that have been and currently are, unfortunately, particularly ravaged with COVID, right? Where there's not much vaccine access or care treatment access and stuff. So, you know, anything we can do to support the most vulnerable, quite frankly, is, you know, we may be the baddies in this fictional setting, but I think we can be the goodies in real life. You know, we can do some good.
Yeah, facts. That's so true. It's really nice to see. Obviously, like, it's not just us. You know, we had a huge like charity hammer tournament there last weekend. Like, it's so nice to see the scene maturing into this stage where, you know, a lot of big movements are happening to raise money for causes and stuff. It's really, really nice to see that this like gaming scene, you know, is so wholesome and stuff, like moving towards that. It makes me feel really good to be part of it, and obviously, you know, to be like more directly part of it with you know, stuff on the red path and all that. And yeah, just in any way whatsoever helped out, or, you know, done something for any of our initiatives. It's like, you know, big shout out to all of you. It's means a lot to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, is there anything you want to close out with? Anything you want to talk about finally, or?
I'd just like to say thanks for having me. Thanks very much, yourself, Jamie, yourself, Dara, and all the kind words in the comments. Thanks very much to everyone who has donated, and you know, hasn't. I would encourage you to do so. It's only a couple of quid, but just thanks very much for everything. I've had a good time.
Well, thanks,
Neil. I have one question.
Go ahead.
Do you like, so like, obviously, you know, fantastic painter and everything. How, like, do you get into the competitive gaming side of the scene at all, or do you kind of just stick to the hobby side of it?
Oh no, I'm that guy who has to like check the rule book like every turn like 6 times. That's me. No, nice. I just don't have a head for it. I just do that. It just like I haven't played a game of 9th edition. That's how long it's been. But I do like to play the odd game. But yeah, I'm not built for it. You know,
that's such a shame. I was gonna say, dude, I was like, I finally found someone in Ireland who I can play World Eaters against. There's like 3 of us in the whole country.
Yeah, well, like, you know, look, yeah, we can play. Like, I'm not gonna bet on me, but like, we can do it.
Yeah, for sure, dude, for sure.
Without giving away, obviously, your you know, where you both live. Do you both know? Are you far away from each other, or are you...
Man, everyone is close to everyone in Ireland. Like, it's such a small country. It does not matter.
Yeah, it is pretty small. It's like, I think like, you know, you could drive from tip to tip in like 6.5
hours. Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know that you know, maybe one day, once everything clears up a bit and it's a bit safer to travel and go to, you know, so. That would be. Who knows? You would have to make sure wherever you played, the table matched the quality of the armies facing off, because that would be GW Warhammer World display quality stuff right there. It's like you have to wear white gloves to move your models and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Are you white and blue or red and brass for your World Leaders? Very important question.
I'm a mixture. I started off doing them actually white and red. There's a picture from one of the 30k books. I can't remember which one it was, that had a red and white, and I kind of like the balance between the two. But from when I kind of started, I kind of redid a lot of models from my World Leaders. Then it was red and brass from there on out. Yeah.
Respect.
What about you?
I am white and blue and white and red for my veterans, but yeah, nice. Primarily white and blue. Yeah, just love the OG 30k scheme. Yeah, it's just so much fun to weather it and stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean,
like the grey scheme myself. I mean,
oh hell yeah, dude. I mean, I think I can speak for both of us in saying it was like an absolute pleasure to have you on. It was awesome to chat hobby. I love talking to people who are so much better than me at painting, because I'm like, wow, tell me everything you know.
Hey, very good, very good.
But yeah, thanks so much, dude, for joining us. It was awesome.
Not at all. Thanks again for having me. I had a good time.
It was good to have you on, mate. Everyone who's watching in the chat, I'm going to take us to a quick break for about 30 seconds, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about some other things. But yeah, so Neil, thanks for being on, and folks watching, be right back. Dara will be joining us ever so shortly. Let me just get this screen back up. So, what brand of crayons is recommended, right? Alright, come on, where are you, mate? There
I'm
you are.
back.
Hey, there you
Hey.
are. Alright, let me get the right screen up. Oh, because it's just two of us, it's a different one now. Okay, well, there we go. Pull you up there. That'll work. Alright, very professional, good stuff. But yeah, okay, so, alright. Pretty interesting stuff right there. That's
Hey, like, dude, the whole time we were talking, I kept like glancing down, like that box I have for. I'm painting my own Bellacore, and I'm just like, God, you're so shit. I hate you. It's just like, why can't you be beautiful?
Yeah, I haven't even built my one yet, so you know, I just it's I'm not stressing. It'll work. Yeah. But yeah, oh god, it looks so good, so good.
Dude,
all I hope is whoever wins it, it's someone that, you know, maybe one day I'll get to meet at a tournament, or you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I want to see it in real life.
I want to hold it. Yeah. You know, just be like, oh, you're so beautiful.
Be in the same room, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So, Baylor.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. So, I guess like right now, let's just say spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, we're gonna talk about it. So like, no, if you don't want spoilers about what happens in Old Baylor, just tune out now. Like, because we're chatting about it, you know. Okay, so that gave you long enough to drop out if you don't want to get any of that.
There's no one watching.
I was surprised, dude. Yeah. So it's no secret that I really dislike the orcs. They're like my least favorite faction in the game. And I was like going into that, I think my roommate put it perfectly when he was like, I was only watching it for the sake of watching something that was Warhammer related.
Yeah.
I was basically the same. I was like, oh, I'm just curious about it, but whatever. And dude, I came away from that being like, I need to know more. You know, I was like, damn, that was hot, you know? Like every time Gaskell came on screen, I was like, yo, this guy slaps.
Brutal,
like this guy is so cool. Like when he was like letting Yarrick back into that Corvus shuttle, and he's like, good enemies is hard to find. I was like, whoa, you know, I was like freaking out, like that's so cool. But yeah, I don't know, what did you think of it, dude? Like it was an interesting one.
Let me ask you, did you like know of the lore, like the background for Yarrick at all, or was this kind like, of you going in blind?
Almost fully blind. I know a very, very, very small amount about Yarrick. As in, like, I know about Armageddon and Golgotha, or whatever you say it. Like, a really, really small amount. And, like, yeah, I just knew Yarrick was, like, this commissar that was, like, Gaskell's archenemy, and, like, he could never be killed or whatever. I had no idea he got, like, captured and Gaskell, like, freed him or whatever.
Yeah.
So when that was happening, I was, like, in shock. I was like, dude, this is insane. So, yeah, basically, most of that story for me was completely new, which, yeah, it was definitely awesome for me.
I couldn't remember the part, where he's captured. I don't remember, presumably that's established, but I knew about how he gets the power claw, and facing when he's on Armageddon and stuff. But yeah, I was hyped when Warhammer Plus, because we talked about it on here, right? I was hyped at first, then kind of tapered off a little bit with stuff going on. I was like, I don't know. And then now I'm back up. It was good. It was solid. I've read a lot of comments and seen a lot of people who weren't maybe 100% sold on the animation style. I didn't mind it. Really reminded me of like the old Aeon Flux, which was an old MTV animation. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And like the Love, Death and Robots kind of something.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's very like Love, Death and Robots.
I think that's where they're coming from. I think after that first came on, there's like, we have all these people making this stuff. We could make our own. Which I don't know if I agree with their paywalling efforts with it. I think I think that's a mistake. But you know, I'm not the head of a billion-dollar company, so what do I know? But I loved it. I loved the narrative way, the way they had the runt herder and the like the two adolescent orc boys or whatever, and how they fit that as like the storytelling. It was
I thought
real nice,
the medium was really good. Like that dynamic was so like well done. It was such a fresh change from like what we're used to seeing of like the Imperial POV. You know, it's always that stuff.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. It was like, so nice.
And they built up Yarrick. Whilst every scene that Yarrick was in was essentially an action scene, right? You got so much of his personality because you know he's a typical 40k character. He's just, you know, he's a badass, stoic, like kind of Clint Eastwood type of grizzled old man that just will not die. He's got that vibe to him, right? But the way they use the orcs, you know, mythology and religion, I suppose, their belief that turns things real and kind of underpin that. And as the runt herder or the squig herder, whatever he was, is like just building up the legend of Yarrick, and it's like, but wait, there's more. You're like, yes, he was badass, but then he became even more badass. Then he got a power claw. Then he got a bale eye, you know, like his actual laser. Then he got captured and still managed to escape. Then Gaz was like, you know what, mate? Respect. You go back. We're gonna have a fight again. Come back with a real army, and we'll have another go. It was, I agree. It was really well done. It was
it was fresh. You know, that's like I came away from that and I was like, haven't seen something like that before. That's cool. You know, really like reminded me of like this like early 2000s animation. Like it's like really, it was really easy for me to enjoy it because like a huge fan of anime myself. So like when I saw that it was like that, I was like, oh, like 20-minute chunk. Perfect length, you know, old style animation. It's like ticking all the boxes straight away. So like even if it's like about two factions that I'm not particularly invested in, I still very much enjoyed it. And I am looking forward to it now. You know, looking forward to seeing more. It's going to be really interesting to see like that they can like develop some other small tales and stuff like this. And like, dude, like as an engine to drive hype for new models that may come down the road, this is it's a good medium for it, you know. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like, dude, you can imagine the amount of people who want to get a Yarrick model like quadruples after that, you know. It's like, it's good stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's a correlation between model releases and animation releases. I don't know if that's going to happen or anything, but like, I feel like
there will be.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have to be really silly to be in GW and like overlook the potential of, especially something like Astartes. You know, when Astartes 2 comes out, they're not going to make Astartes models like there's like hundreds and thousands of dollars they're potentially missing out on.
But that's the, you know, sometimes with GW they make me wonder because it's like there's two people making decisions, right? One has really great ideas. And the other one's like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to incorporate it, but I'm going to somehow make it shit. Like the Warhammer Plus, right? Let's have all of the Warhammer animators in one place creating content, but let's put it behind a paywall. And it's like, why? This is stuff that if you just had put it on a YouTube channel, or you know, whatever, even if it's on Warcom, right? Even if it's, you have to go to Warcom to watch it, the amount of business they would generate would far surpass whatever they are gonna, their income they're gonna get, in my opinion, through the subscription. You know, even if it's like the first 3 episodes of every series they put out for free, and then lure you in. You know, there's business.
I was gonna suggest something like that. Yeah.
There's ways they could incorporate the two. You know, this was a good effort, and if they do more stuff like, you know, releasing an episode for free, okay. But again, this hasn't been communicated as an intent going forward. So they do something amazing that could be, number one, something awesome for us as nerd, you know, as fans, and could also drive sales. Like if they do imagine if there's an episode and we see some kind of like berserker in the background, right? That
Yeah,
just
dude,
looks
that's
different.
what I'm thinking, you know? Yeah.
Like
yeah.
we're gonna have hours of content zooming in and analyzing the screen, right? And just the hype we will generate for free for Games Workshop based off of some minor image in the background of an episode is unreal. But well, we wouldn't be able to because you know we can't show the screenshots, but we could talk about it. But yeah,
yeah, it's an interesting one. Like obviously, we don't know yet if Plus is going to be like good value for money. Really depends on the quality and quantity of uploads. I guess like if it is very good value, I mean, fine, but like I still think they should, like, you know, the way how on like a lot of the sort of on-demand services for like any 40k kind of YouTube stuff, it's like you get a certain amount on YouTube and then you can pay for the extra stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yo, this like it's a good system. Just do that, you know.
Well, like Tabletop Tactics, right? You got the T-shirt on. I paid for them.
Literally.
Hellstorm Wargaming, I pay for them. A couple others I dip in and out of depending, but yeah, like they get the customer by having the YouTube service, by having the, you know, like the whatever content they put there, and you're like, man, I just love the personality of this channel, or these content creators, or whatever, or you know, I just appreciate them, so I want to support them. So I do. Because even though I hardly watch bat reps anymore, I want, you know, Tabletop Tactics.
You want it, dude. I'm the same.
I support them, like, because
they're doing good stuff. You know, it's good work. Yeah, for sure. So, it's an interesting one. Obviously, you know, it's been like a pretty dicey time in the community for a variety of different reasons, and it's like, I don't know. It's not nice.
It's ups and downs, and like, whilst, I mean, we've talked, you know, ourselves privately or whatever, and it's like we're not like jumping on the anti-GW train, where everyone was just like boycott GW and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's like
there again, we're also cognizant of the issues that exist, and it's just it could have been done better. The whole process needed communications, transparency, openness. You know, it just be upfront with us, because you let the GW allowed the hot take, fast-paced, you know, internet media, like whether YouTube channels, Facebook posts, whatever, they controlled the narrative, and suddenly everyone is just assuming that it's a disaster, that GW is a complete evil, you know, monstrosity because of the title cards of YouTube videos. And
it's a huge problem.
I'm not defending GW, but they haven't done anything as bad as they've been accused of, as far as I can tell.
It's the biggest problem at the minute is like, so obviously, I'm like totally with you that like they should be better in so many ways, and one of those really important ways is communication in so many different respects. But like, it's literally like you said, the narrative was set immediately, and it set a tone, and like it wasn't until like a little bit after, when people started digging in and reading around all the related scandals, that like inconsistencies start cropping up, and you're like, this is a little bit weird. But like, you know, at that point, like the horse is out of the stable, you know, like damage control, you know. And it's like, like, I don't know, I think when you're in a position that like some of these people are to like make like big plays like that, you got to be really cognizant of the reaction of the more volatile side of the fan base, which is often the vocal majority. Like obviously it's like the minority of players, right? But like it's a big part of, and it's not like, man, like I got really depressed because like I saw a couple of comments and posts of people who were like, I've just gotten into this hobby and I kind of want to dip out because everyone is so angry and like pessimistic. And I'm like, you're not seeing everyone, you know. It's like you're seeing the people who are angry. And like I don't know, I've been trying to actively do this myself recently, and I would encourage like other people to, if they can, where it's like, if you see something, you know, positive, It doesn't matter if it's like a cool model someone painted, or if it's like a list that you're like, damn, that's cool, you know. Just like take those like couple of seconds to comment on it, or give it a like, give it an upvote, give it a whatever, and just be like, yo, this is dope, you know, keep up your good work, like I love this, you know, like promote that, like that love that, like, you know, that we should be known for, because it's like it's like what we were saying with Neil, you know, we got all this cool charity stuff going on, and all this like goodwill is like coming into the hobby, and it's like we need to start circulating that like good conversation. And I'm not saying don't be critical when there's reason to be, like, absolutely there's always reason to be critical, but like, you know, like let's try and make everything not be so negative, you know. It's like, can we not just be like, let's project some good vibes here, you know? It's like, yeah, and it's really not hard to do. Like I've been doing it a lot myself, and I'm like, yo, I feel good, like I'm like commenting stuff and being like, I love your stuff, keep it up, you know. It's like promote that good vibe. And like I even saw it a lot with like when Old Baylor dropped, everyone was commenting being like, yo, this slaps, like this is actually really good. And I was like, yeah, let's get that positive mentality going, where it's like, yeah, this is good, you know, let's recognize something good for once. And it's like when Decor came out, you know, everyone was like, this is dope, and it's like, yeah, keep pushing that, you know. Let's be happy, let's enjoy this hobby, rather than like, yeah, I want to come home after a long day's work and go onto like whatever social media and be like, yo, this is my hobby that I love, rather than being like, oh, what's the latest drama, you know.
I think that's especially important, that attitude, right? Because the real world is, unfortunately, we're saturated with this kind of negative portrayal of. Don't get me wrong, the world is a hard place, and there are people suffering and stuff like that, but the way, and I'm not going into conspiracy theory here at all, but the media focuses on the negative, right? And the news is the news. That's the problem. Bad news sells. Now, we do need to be aware of the things in the world, war and, you know, pandemic and stuff like that. We have to be informed. However, as you say, bad news sells, and the media spins things, because you get people angry, you get customers. And that's happening with Games Workshop stuff, with 40k stuff. So anything bad happens or slightly negative, every hot take YouTube channel is you know, got their video about it. Whether it's Warhammer Plus, whether it's the Bolter and Chainsaw GT with the list discrepancy, or the game discrepancy with Manny Chima a few weeks ago, right? Yes, something happened, but we don't need 30 videos. We don't need every competitive 40k discussion about this. Something happened, the guys talked it out, they figured it out, you know, the discipline has been done, move on. Let's talk about these sweet ass models that people are painting. Let's talk about this badass list where someone, you know, took a, you know, Orcs list and won a GT or something with some left field play. Or whatever. Let's talk about the good things, because this is a hobby, not the real world.
Someone came top 10 in the Orlando GT, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
With Necrons. Did you see what was in that Necron list?
No, I did not.
A goddamn monolith. I'm like, what are people not talking about?
The monolith, you know? Is back.
The God Pyramid, you know. But yeah, like I'm with you. You know, it's like let's get that positive flow going, because like, we just had a like charity hammer, and it's like, let's talk about that vibe, you know. It's like
over $40,000 they raised.
Let's literally make, like, instead of like 20 negative videos on like X, Y, and Z, or like 20 negative posts, like let's start making that good energy, you know. And it's like, again, yeah, it's really important to be informed and have your criticism, and like obviously we have our criticism of GW as well. Like it's healthy to have that, but you know, don't ignore good news or like things that you recognize as being good, you know. It's like, it's difficult to change that mindset, I found, like, but once you do, you're gonna feel happier, you know. It's like you get more enjoyment out of the hobby. Like, we're at the end of the day, everyone needs to realize it's a game, you know. It's a game of little toy soldiers that like we all probably enjoyed when we were young or got into it whenever, and it's just supposed to make us happy. And like, if there's parts of it that aren't making you happy, like, just reevaluate that, you know. It's like try and address those concerns. And like, I mean, man, I don't know, one of the things that like pissed me off the most is like when all this drama was happening like a couple of weeks ago, like the whole boycott GW thing, I started looking at other people who were like commenting, like looking into their profiles. Man, some of them had like never commented anything on any Warhammer thing before. Like, so you have to be aware that like some of the things people are saying, they're just parrots, and they're like in these threads to stir the pot, to cause more drama. And like, dude, that is bad. You know, that's unhealthy. And like, you're reading these things, and if you're not aware that there is these situations arising, it brings you down. You know, you're like, oh, these people who like hate the hobby that they have loved for a long time, and it's like, yeah, they actually might just never have partaked in it whatsoever. You know,
there are people in there to stir up controversy, to more than likely, just direct you to a particular YouTube channel or something like that, or to support some, patron or something. Everyone's got an angle. Like when there's bad news, it's because someone's going to try and make $1 off it, unfortunately, and stirring the pot and all that sort of stuff. They do, or maybe they're not trying to make $1, but some people genuinely get pleasure from watching everyone else get riled up. So,
Yep.
But you mentioned Orlando though, so I'm going to change this, and hopefully I've got your Zoom. Yep. All right. So right now. Okay, there we go. Let me just move our pictures. There. There we go. That'll work. But yeah, okay, so I know you can't see it at the moment, Dara, but on the other side of our screen is the leaderboard for the Orlando. I just figured I'd throw it up there from FLG. So, how much do you know about the event? Like, have you read much about it or anything?
Yeah, I watched most of the games that were streamed, because I was at home that weekend, so I was able to like Chromecast it onto the widescreen TV, and I was like, wow, this is great. Like my dad came in and like watched it with me for a bit, and he was like, this isn't at all like the football, and I'm like, no, Dad, it's okay, don't worry. But yeah, so I watched it. If anyone else was watching, you would have seen I had a bit of back and forth with Nick Nadavati and Paul Murphy about world leaders and stuff, which was an interesting one. Yeah, I was like commenting and stuff, and they were like, chatting back on the stream, and because they were Nick was saying that Mark Perry like almost took world leaders to it, and like last minute switched to Craft World. But he made a lot of really good points about how he thinks world leaders would function really well in those types of events, which I very much agree with. I think I'll touch on that like in a couple of minutes. Yeah, so I think before I guess like we go hard into the event, I would have to say that was like one of the best casted Warhammer events I've ever watched. Okay. It was amazing. The commentary was phenomenal. Yeah. Like a lot of people put it really well when they were talking about it online, where they said it was friendly to both people who were brand new to competitive and longtime veterans. Okay. Where you would have like say Paul, he would point out a play. Yeah. And he would be like, oh, that's like this thing. So somebody who's brand new is like, oh, okay, I don't really know what that is. And then Nick would like drill down into it and explain the nitty gritty. So it's like, I'm like, yo, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we need. And like they had the 2 games going on in parallel so they could switch between them. Yeah. Really nice too, so you never got bored of a game. And yeah, it was really, really well casted. I was extremely impressed, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one. I hope they keep Nick and Paul, because I think they did a really good job. Yeah. And yeah, if you haven't seen it already, check it out, because they have a lot of really good insights. And for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways from the event. It was obviously very well run, but that was one of the highlights for me. I don't know if you managed to catch any of it yourself or what you thought.
No, because I've been dealing with the move. But yeah, just anyone watching this, my background right now will be Warhammered up to the 9s once I get set up. I just hastily threw some bookshelves and some models on there for a bit of a background. But yeah, I didn't actually get to catch any of it, which was really upsetting, because I really like, because Paul's from Forge the Narrative, which is one of my favourite podcasts, and Nick's obviously like such a well-known and intellectual 40k player. Like, just if you've got a 40k question, like, he's one of the guys that's going to know. And I unfortunately didn't get to catch any, but my intention is, I think either tomorrow night I'm going to just sit down in my room and catch it up on Twitch, because I believe it's all available on the Warhammer Twitch, right?
Yeah. And I would recommend for you and anyone else who is planning on catching up, there is a game where it is Blood Angels versus Death Watch.
Okay.
And if you want to know how to become a master of playing a close combat army, watch what that Blood Angels player does. Because honestly, I don't think I've seen a more beautiful gameplay than the game that guy played.
From Art of War? Jack
I think so, yeah. He came third.
4.
Yeah.
Or
fourth, sorry.
Yeah, fourth overall
Fourth, yeah.
with Blood Angels, so yeah.
It was phenomenal. The way he moved, I was like, this is beautiful. Like literally, I mean, Nick was like saying it on stream, he's like, he's playing the perfect game of 40k, and I couldn't disagree. It was beautiful. Okay. So watch that one. If you guys want to learn how to move your army in such a way that, like, basically, he didn't have to roll any dice to win the game.
Wow.
It was, everything was so well planned that it did not matter what dice were rolled, because it was just going to go his way.
Okay.
You know, it was incredible to watch, and I'm going to hopefully take those tactics with me in my next few games. But yeah, it was great. The biggest talking point, I think, from the whole weekend, and one that I hope becomes a strong talking point, and I've already seen discussions about it, was the terrain setup.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
So yeah, read out the top 10 to me, the armies.
So, all right. So in 10th place, Drakari. Then we had Eldari, which was Mark Perry, Necrons, Chaos Demons, Imperial Knights, Cult Mechanicus, Blood Angels, Adeptus Custodes, Adeptus Sororitas, and then in first place, Admech again. So a very varied top 10 that includes Imperial Knights, which I'm wondering if that's something you want to touch on, talking about the terrain.
Well, I fundamentally believe that the variation in that top 10 is entirely down to the terrain.
Okay.
I would say, without question, it kind of makes me wonder when GW are balancing codexes, do they play with this very specific terrain? Because I think if all events played with this terrain setup, we would see a lot more interesting results.
Well, something I noticed because obviously we'd seen the planned images, we'd seen like a rough idea of what the board was supposed to look at. But I did see some pictures, and because Zach Rockner, World Eaters player, who was on the channel a couple of weeks ago, actually TO'd, or was one of the refs at the event. So he shared a bunch of pictures, and I was looking at the tables, and something that struck me as I was looking at them. Obviously, the GW terrain is on like a clear perspex sheet, right? The entire base gives obscuring, so like even though the physical terrain is quite small, the actual base is like a huge skyscraper. However, the mobility afforded to an Imperial Knight or a tank, you can still walk over that perspex plastic base. You can't, you're obstructed by the ruins or whatever. But visibility wise, it allows infantry or small vehicles to find really good hiding places and to shut down the firing lanes. But the big stompy robot, whilst he's at a disadvantage in the onset of the game because of all this obscuring, he can just barge right through those gaps that are there, because he can walk across the base. He just obviously can't walk through the ruins itself. Every tournament I've been to, every bat rep I've watched through 9th edition since we got these terrain rules, the terrain, if it was on a base, had maybe like an inch outside of the ruins wall. These bases to me looked like there was a good 3 or 4 inches of plastic beyond the edge of the ruin, allowing that interactivity of the knight. Just as an example, because knights are an army that have really suffered because of terrain. And it just allowed, okay, I can move. Yes, it's going to suck for a turn or two, but once I get on this terrain, I'm shooting pretty much everything on the table. And that was just something I noticed. I don't know if you had any additional feedback for...
I mean, you're totally right. I think the clear basing for the terrain was a fantastic idea, because first of all, it eliminates all the weirdness of GW shaped terrain, which is often like, you know, the Sector Mechanicus stuff is bizarre. Like, if you've got a clear plastic card base, you can fucking put down any of those weird Sector Mechanicus gantries or whatever. It doesn't matter what it looks like, because that clear base is the terrain. So you can have a cool ass looking board, and as long as you have those bases, you know exactly what's going on. And there are defined parameters of, this is the perimeter of the terrain. You know all the rules that are happening within this square. I don't give a shit that it looks like this weird furnace from hell, or a bizarre tree with an Eldar rune growing out of its ass, or whatever. It does not matter, because that square is all that matters. You want to draw a line of sight, you got to be able to make sure you're not passing through that square, because that is obscuring. And in your own home base, you've got these huge ruins that ground floor is obscuring and blocks line of sight. So you can be inside those ruins, taking shelter, making sure you're not getting shot. Man, like, it was tight, you know? Like, you'll totally see it. If you watch the Blood Angel game, the way he uses the terrain is outstanding, because he marks with dice the firing lanes and the visibility lanes, and he is basically like, I'm not inside this lane, ergo I cannot be shot no matter where you move. And that's all so easy to do when you have these square bases. You can't do that if you're trying to work out, well, if I weave around the pillar here and duck under the alcove and sneak my bolter through the archway, I can get you. You know, it's like, no, you don't pass through the square. That's it. You know, that's it. That is why I believe that the top 10 was so interesting, because you don't have AdMech stuff just TPing around the board and doing whatever they want to do. Obviously, they still did really well. They won the event, but like,
well, you had Richard Siegler running AdMech. I mean, you give someone like that an army like that, he's going to place. Again, John Lennon with Sisters, super strong army, strong player. Custodies, Steve Trimble of Brohammer, you know, that's good. I would imagine that game, or those games with his Custodies there, was probably similar to the game you're talking about with the Blood Angels, using a very an even more elite infantry based army. I don't know the list, but then again, just one more AdMech player in the top 10. Then we get the Knights, Chaos Demons, which is interesting.
I'm pretty sure that Chaos Demons list, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it was actually on stream, which was Double Keeper's Secret, Shalaxi Hellblade, Be'lakor, and a Lord of Change. It's pretty cool list. If that's the same list, which I'm pretty sure it is, because that guy was picking up wins all over the board. Another great game to watch when they were facing off against the Eldari, which was a really cool mix of Craftworlders and Harlequins. But yeah, and then there was like another game where it's like the Necrons versus Tyranids, and man, like the Macarians don't give a shit when they jump over the terrain all the time. Man, those things are scary.
They are.
But yeah, like it just made the game so pleasurable to watch, because it just really reduced that kind of like, hey, I just blow you off the board, but, you know. And I would love if tournaments took a proper look at this and said, all right, maybe we don't have the giant terrain pool that we would have thought we would have needed. I'll just print out some of those plastic squares and put X, Y, and Z on it, and then we all know where we stand. And I hope there's some big takeaways from this event, because I think there's a lot to be learned in a couple of different senses. But yeah, I mean, dude, like going forward, if this is the style of terrain that gets adopted, World Leaders are going to have a good time. Real good time.
Another good thing, and this is kind of a tangent, about using the clear plastic base. When I've been to like the last couple of little tournaments I've been to, or just even in a friendly game, so this piece of terrain is dense and this piece is obscuring and light cover, but this piece is heavy cover and obscure. On a plastic base, just get a Sharpie or a magic marker, and literally. D for dense, over obscure, and then you just wipe it off when you're done. Or you know, actually, we're not going to play that rule on this one, or you whatever. So easy, because like, you know, I've used tokens and notes before, but they're a pain in the ass. If I could just write on the damn terrain that it's
so simple.
Yeah,
it speeds up the game, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I personally found it amazing. It was like the best layout of a board that I've seen in 9th edition.
Right.
So yeah, going forward, I hope that a lot of TOs look at it and kind of think to themselves, like, maybe we need to start, you know, if we want to get that cool
Yeah.
variation in our top 10s, we got to start adopting that strategy. It's really going to be interesting to see. I think the next one is in November. If we get a similar top 10 of variation and stuff like that, you know,
Well,
if we get consistent turnouts like this, there's gonna be an onus on TOs to start producing boards of that quality.
well, what I'm wondering is, because you know, obviously with the Lone Star Open, and we got the Las Vegas team tournament, which is a little bit different, but Lone Star, you know, there was, I'm not going to say controversy, but it was interesting that they chose the terrain rulings that they did, with so much heavy cover and player placed terrain and stuff like that. By all means, you got to try it, and you know, FLG are very engaged with the community. They're always running Q&As and polls in like different Facebook groups and stuff. They're not just saying this is how it is, you got to deal with it. Mark's still in the chat because he just commented. He knows what I'm talking about. But yeah,
Mark was there, right?
Yeah, Mark, and he was, you know, rightfully so, very strongly questioning the TO team, like, why are we doing this? Mark, worse than 2 wounds, heavy cover. I know you've told me before, but leave a comment for us about your overall feelings of after LSO, how you felt about the terrain, and I'll come back to you in a second. But I'm interested to see how FLG does the LVO, as I believe that's their next big individual event. I don't know if they've got like
SoCal would be
SoCal. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Have they done New Orleans yet? I'm not sure if they've done New Orleans. I can't keep up because I only care about the one I got a ticket for. But yeah, I wonder if they're going to stick with their terrain setup, or if seeing the already strong success and feedback that I've read and heard of the Warhammer way of doing it, if they may pivot towards that. I mean, if we can get a single best practice, not mandatory, but something that, you know, certainly the majors use, right, and GTs try and use. Because what's interesting as well, terrain is expensive and is a burden on TOs. But in theory, you could buy a whole bunch of cheap see-through plastic, and you could have 2D terrain if you have to. I'm not saying that's a way forward for the game, but if you're like just starting up a little RTT circuit with maybe 12 to 16 players, in theory you could put a mark on there for where the ruins of the wall are, and put initials on there of what obscure and indents, what traits the terrain has. You could get away with it to start with until you get the resources to put some actual 3D terrain on there, some like real terrain.
Yeah, like if needs must, you can do it. And standardization across the board, especially when it comes to terrain, is always good. Like, it's the eternal debate that everyone has all the time. What's the perfect terrain? And I'm not saying that the GW Orlando terrain is perfect, but it's, for me, my own personal viewpoint, is as close as we've come to a very good system. And it's just fascinating to me to wonder, when they're playtesting codexes, is that the terrain setup they're using? Because, like, while it obviously doesn't excuse some of the bullshit in, like, the Dark Elder and the AdMech, it makes me wonder, is that kind of why the events don't always reflect maybe the intention of the playtesters? It's really hard to say. But I think having a guideline going forward will be massive if we get one. And I do hope we get one maybe in the new season of the ITC. Yeah, it's interesting because obviously it impacts the game, way more than people give it credit for. As we're seeing, the results from this event kind of tell that story. Because it's not like, oh, that was a tournament with nobodies. Like, Art of War turned up in force, Brohammer turned up in force. It's like, these are all the best players in the world.
The esports were there. I'm thinking the next chapter approved, whether they do a end of year chapter approved or they do the summer chapter approved, I think we're going to get a terrain. You know how they did one for like Crusade or friendly play. I think we'll get a matched play or organised play version. GT 2022, I think there'll be a supplement with here's how to set
Terrain
up your
maps,
table.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this
I
is
would love
them.
that. Yeah.
I would be absolutely okay with GW recommending it because it's the missing piece. Because the trick to competitive play is making as balanced a game as you can to reduce as much as possible down to player skill, so the best player wins. Terrain, as much as there's really good concepts out there. Whether in the UK scene, I know Hellstorm events have recently changed the way they do their terrain. Obviously, FLG's doing the way they're doing their terrain. Lots of different input, but it's so many different groups of people having great ideas. If we get a central recommendation from GW and they give us 3, 4, 5 different things and they say, look, this is what we've play tested on, like you say. This is what the codexes are pointed for. This will reduce a lot of the feels bads and the apparent perceived OP-ness of, oh, that didn't sound right, overpoweredness. Whoops, demonetized. Not that we are, but it would reduce a lot of the overpoweredness that is perceived of particular armies, because if people are playing on what we think is a good table, terrain-wise, and it's actually not, then Las Chickens and Skitarii blobs and flying murdered Drukhari death ships, they're inherently more cost efficient if there's not enough terrain, or the wrong sort of terrain, or the wrong firing lanes or whatever. So yeah, standardization is good. Let me just read what Mark said here, because he's commented about his experience at the LSO with the player placed terrain. So first off, you're 100% correct. The frontline gaming folks make a huge investment in terraining 150 plus tables, and that should be massively appreciated, but it isn't. And yeah, like it's the amount of money they have to have spent, even as one of the biggest independent businesses in 40k or Warhammer. Their investment is huge. And he says, then I'd suggest player-based terrain is fine, but I'd prefer you place the terrain before picking table sides, and heavy cover should be rare per the rules. Agreeable. Knowing you'll have heavy and light cover on every objective on your side of the board strongly favours armies that ignore those effects and gain additional benefits from it. It does add an additional skill to the game, because placing terrain is a skill. And yeah, it's something that I'm actually kind of concerned about if it does go into LVO with player placed, because it is something I've not really worried about too much, because I try and I build my World Eaters list to be able to, obviously a lot of the power is in the infantry and the shooting. For like my contemptors stand back and shoot, so I need firing lanes, which I've generally got, and my drills come up and then berserkers jump out. But if we're doing player placed terrain, how am I going to set myself up, and then I've got to develop the skill to be able to react to a non-symmetric battlefield, which is not what I've practiced on, or not what I have been practicing on. So it's pretty interesting. What are your thoughts, like, Dara, about player placed terrain, for example?
They're very strong. My thoughts. I hate it. I'm just gonna straight up say that right now. It's probably one of my least favorite competitive things that can happen. It's like a couple of different reasons, but I'll just pitch this to you really simply. All right. So here I am. I'm maybe like fairly young kid, just like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna hit up this Warhammer competitive scene. I'm getting excited, starting to understand my army. It's pretty hype. I know my rules. Played a few games in my local game store, whatever. Gonna rock up to this tournament, and I come up against my first opponent, and could be someone who's got like reasonable amount of tournament experience. And I sit down, I'm like, okay, here's my army, and he's okay. He's like, okay, so let's start the terrain placement phase. And I'm like, yo, excuse me, like, player placed terrain massively favors veteran players. to the point that like literally, I think it was John Lennon or maybe it was Siegler, whichever one of them won the event with the Sisters of Battle, they brought like a battle sanctum,
terrain, yeah.
And they were like, I literally only brought this because of player place terrain.
Yeah.
Like, it introduces a skill gap into the game, which is already full of skill gaps.
Yeah.
And like, it's such a massive skill gap. Like, if you're good at player place terrain, you're just gonna win. Like, I have played so many games of 40k, and I don't know shit about player place terrain. Like, I'm like, nothing about that is appealing to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't want to have this added level of variation and variability when I rock up to the table. I'm already dealing with enough in my head.
Yeah.
It's already a time budget. You know, every game is already tight on time, and now you're adding this extra step, and these extra complications, extra stress that you have to think about in every single game.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to consider, I'm coming up against this, I'm coming up against this. What the hell am I going to do? How am I going to place the terrain so it works for me? Because you're going into it being like, well, I know if terrain will favor the world leaders, I'll push some stuff into the midboard so it gets me cover. And then you come up against orcs, and you're like, well, then I want to have firing lanes to shoot the orcs before they get to me if I don't go first. And man, like, it's awful. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I know there's like merit to it, but I actually hate it. Like, I think the main thing is someone just trying to join the scene, and it's like they think they've just gotten a hang of the rules, and then they're faced with this additional obstacle. Man, honestly, I would say this straight up now. If I was getting into the competitive scene just when I started out and I found out it was player place terrain all the time, I probably just wouldn't get into it, because I'd be like, I'm not learning this extra thing. You know, it's just too much.
One point, I mean, I completely agree with you, quite frankly, but the point I want to double down on is the idea of an extra step and the time budget. Something I keep mentioning to like local TOs here when I'm going to an event. Tell us the missions a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before. Could we release the first round pairing 24 hours before? I want as much information equal, like to everyone. I'm not asking for a personal advantage. What's the terrain setup? I want to know as much as I can before the event. Because when I get to the table, I want to deploy my army and I want to start the game. I don't, like you said, I don't want to spend 10 minutes adjusting stuff. I don't want to, okay, so you've got 73 models that give up, thin their ranks, but you've got 4. If I know the first round list, I can pick my secondaries and walk up to the first game, and I've already, okay, this is my game plan for this game. I've envisioned my deployment. We can start rolling dice. My opponent has had the same opportunity, because when you get to your second and third and later rounds, you get, like 15 minutes with your opponent's list normally once the pairings go up. Doesn't really happen in my local area because everything's kind of announced when you show up, which is frustrating because it slows the game. It adds 15-20 minutes to every round, which is an hour over the day. And that's an hour we could have had either on the table or chilling out afterwards, or I could just get home an hour earlier. And I agree. The fewer things you have to worry about on the day means your performance is that much better, means everyone gets a better game. And at the end of the day, that's what we should be striving for. The most fun on the table with the most competitive edge available to everyone equally. And reduce those things that increase the skills gap, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think the skill gap is like the biggest thing for me, because like 80 to 90% of the players who are going to an event don't have experience with player place terrain. Like they just don't. It's just a fact. And like the amount of mistakes that can potentially be made when you've got two people trying to understand how to do player place terrain correctly and they don't really know.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Like I don't really see any merit to it. I really don't. Like, if someone can find me a positive to player place terrain, I will happily listen. But like, honestly, I just don't see one. I only see it favoring people who can properly sit down and practice placing terrain. And like, man, I barely have enough time to practice my army list. I don't have time to be practicing how to place terrain. Like, you just don't.
We're not a game with a real pro scene. This is an amateur's game. There are people that are, power to them, who do 40k basically professionally. Art of War, for instance. They live in a 40k house. They can play and they can practice this. but this game isn't Art of War 40k. This game is Warhammer 40k, and the access level needs to be equal for everyone. As long as you've got a painted army, you know, for a GW event especially, a painted army that is legal, an official GW and Forge World product. The only factor after that should be your skill with that army, barring a little bit of sway with codexes, because that's always going to be a thing. But we can still do well. You know, we can, like, this event obviously ameliorated that. The Orlando event gave us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different factions in the top 10.
It's amazing.
8,
We need to latch onto this.
Yes,
you know? We need to start putting this word out there. You know, and it's like, it's standardization. You know, that is like start at 9th, standard missions. Yeah. Everyone in the world playing the GT missions, and guess what? They slap. They're really good. They're tight missions. Now we're moving into standardized terrain.
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah, sure. We only have one event to go from, one sample. We'll get more as time goes on. If we start seeing this occur regularly, we need to start doubling down on standardized terrain. You need to ask for it. You need to pitch this idea to your TOs, to FLG, to whoever is running your local scene, and be like, hey, do you want to have a good tournament with fun results? Start looking at this, you know? It's like, literally be the change you want to see. I always say, you know? It's like, just get out there and ask for these things, you know? And it's like, I don't know. I think it would be fantastic if we start seeing less variation in outside variables, and as you said, just focusing in on that skill between two players, codexes notwithstanding. So yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of takeaways, I think, from the Orlando event that maybe people aren't quite talking about just yet, but needs to be brought into conversation. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I mean, obviously really biased because those boards are really good for world leaders. Yeah. So,
but they're being good for, and I say this unironically, if the table is good for world eaters, it's good for the game. Now, obviously, there's an extreme of that where it's like, you know, what's the
like city fighting or something, cities of death.
Cities of death, or zone mortalis or something, whatever it is, you know. Yes, we don't go that far, but if an army that is generally very combat heavy if I can play an equally skilled AdMech player on a board, and after 10 games I've won 5, lost 5, we've got the right terrain set up, you know. And I know that board is going to be quite dense with terrain, but the density is less important than the placement. So, for instance, the GW boards have firing lanes. There's a lot of terrain there, there's a lot of obscuring, but to be able to capitalize on objectives, I have to become vulnerable in a lot of those setups. So that comes to my skill as a player. The AdMech player I'm playing against, their skill as a player is making sure they have beads on where they know I'm going to have to move to. And then it becomes the general versus the general, just using the troops on the table. I've got the advantage in the building, but my opponent has the advantage out of the building in that setup. So a map, a terrain setup that is good for world eaters, I think, without going too far, is good for the game, and addresses a lot of the codex imbalance, which you kind of alluded to when we first started talking about it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I very much agree with that sentiment.
Okay, I think. Hold on. We've got a smart ass comment for you. Mark says the only positive you can really give about player place terrain is that it forces a conversation of what each piece of terrain keywords are. It's true, but it's the silver lining. Like, I agree, because I've had issues with that crop up. Not feel bad issues, just like moments of confusion. But yeah, we should be like, the onus is on me as a player as well. When I step up to the table, hey, are we agreeing this is dense, this is obscure? And it does force that, but I think there's better ways to get around that. Oh, it also says that player place terrain was cycled out from the original GT scene. So, yeah, it's evidently been tried before and not found.
Yeah,
great,
I mean,
so.
I think it was on the Long War they were talking about it, where it's like, yeah, they tried it before, it didn't work. It's like, why are you doing it again?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think, I mean, from the theme I've read, where FLG have become a lot more equally engaged in the community. They've always been there, but I've seen a lot more efforts to reach out for polls and for questionnaires and stuff. Obviously, they've expanded their business recently, basically getting Val Heffelfinger involved, you know, as the kind of media manager or whatever. Kicker Kolodzi, I apologise for mispronouncing his last name, being very engaged on social media and stuff. And I wonder if it was the case, okay, let's try something and get conversation going to a degree. Maybe it wasn't the best thing to use as a conversation starter and getting it discussed, but we'll see how they carry it through.
I mean, at least they know going forward that most people don't want it, you know.
It's been,
so yeah, there's that.
There's been a lot of top tier players, you know, rightfully so, vocal against it, like Mark. Dan Salmons was, you know, talking against it. I can't remember everyone, but, you know, these are people, you know, I don't like to these are the only opinions that matter. My point is, these are people that are respected and known in the community. And, you know, if someone like FLG is going to listen to people, it's going to be from people that place highly at events. Like, they're not going to listen to me because, you know, why would they? Who am I? I'm just some dude. But you get someone who often places well at your events and shows up to their events, they have a duty to listen to that person, quite frankly.
I actually kind of disagree with you there, okay. To be honest. I think they should listen to everyone because... Like, I get what you're saying, that, like, obviously those voices are big in the community because they're really good players and stuff, and it is really important to listen to them on a variety of matters. But I think in this very specific matter, it's a little bit different because the nature of the player place terrain, like I was saying, affects everyone across the whole thing. So, like, if you know, you and me, like, pretty average players or whatever, if all of us average players are like, yo, this is shit, like, we hate having this extra step, you know, we need to be listened to too. And equally, like I was saying, you know, if you're a brand new player and you rock up and you're like, man, I didn't know I was going to have to do this, I'm not playing that, you know. If enough of those new players are having that sentiment, you need to listen to that, you know. It's like, it's very important to hear those voices too, I think.
No, I agree. And whilst we should be listened to, I mean it more from a realistic point of view.
Oh yeah,
who they're going to listen, because they can't listen to everyone, right? They can't listen to every of the 5,000 comments complaining to them, right? But when they do see those, and that's why I mentioned them, you know, as bigger players, those names stand out. They get more thumbs up or reactions to them because everyone knows the name. And when those people do say, hey guys, this is kind of a shit idea, then they will see it. Yes, they should listen to the me's and you's of the world, but in the real world, they're gonna filter by top comments, and they're gonna look at those, and they're gonna look at their questionnaire results. They will get the general view, and then the names. Oh, okay, so Mark doesn't like, or Dan, or Nick, John doesn't like it, or whatever, right? These are people they know and probably actually have like. Some kind of informal relationship behind the scene. Like, I'm saying, like, they'll have a drink with them afterwards or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas I show up, who the hell's this guy? That's the point I'm making. These are people they will listen to, and these are people that are agreeing with us as average players. So that's why I highlighted the importance. I completely agree. We should all be listened to, but the real world is the real world.
For sure. It's an important topic. I think we broke it down pretty well, to be honest. I think so, we kind of really we covered that one quite well. Yeah.
I don't want to, just for anyone watching, I don't want to dive into like the list or the meta of the event, just because there's no Chaos Space Marines in there in the top 10.
Wow.
Yeah, there's Chaos Demons. I was looking through it earlier. The Chaos Space Marines were sadly lacking, but I noticed a few Emperor's Children players.
Yeah,
stuff
there
like that.
actually really wasn't that many Chaos
Yeah.
Marine players at the
Which
event anyway.
understandable.
Yeah, it is what it is. You know,
yeah.
it's not the most popular faction right now.
Mark Perry let us down, and Zach
Yeah.
was Zach was running. He was TOing. You know, Florida.
Hey man, it's only like what 3 months until Coventry, when the whole scene explodes as world leaders take the third biggest tournament in the world.
Right, yeah, and then just a little while after that, I'll be in the bottom
Hell
tables of the LVO. So
hell yeah, practicing your very own submarine maneuver.
yeah. But yeah, okay. I think we've really covered it. Not really much else happening. Certainly not World Eaters related in the last couple of weeks.
No,
that I haven't really
absolutely
already covered either on videos or we've talked about. Really like a kind of what's been going on. Obviously, and to hype up Be'lakor is the biggest thing going on. But yeah, I will say just a general reminder to everyone. Obviously, Be'lakor is up for grabs. I will do probably a quite short live stream. I'll talk to Dara. I don't know. You know, we'll sort out whether it's just me.
Yeah, we'll sort it out.
But yeah, we'll go we'll do another live stream next week where we'll draw the winner. So if you haven't already donated, would appreciate a $5 donation. That's all you need to give. But yeah, I think Dara, you want to take us out, mate?
Yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. Mark, thanks for your excellent contributions regarding the Lone Star Open. But yeah, that was fun, guys. We talked a lot of hobby, we talked a lot of general Warhammer stuff and some cool competitive stuff. And yeah, I just want to reinforce, spread the positive vibe, you know. Start commenting, start liking. If you see stuff that you like, make sure the person who put that up knows that you like it. Let's get a good vibe going. And yeah, let's keep doing good. So yeah, until next time, everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill me and burn.